If you want to build explosive power for wrestling, you need to be doing the Olympic lifts, which are the contested movements from the sport of weightlifting. The first of which is the snatch, where you take a wide grip on the bar and take the bar from the floor to overhead in one explosive fluid movement. The second movement is the clean and jerk, which is a two-stage lift where you grab right outside your shoulders, clean the bar onto the front rack of your shoulders, then perform the jerk by throwing the bar overhead while simultaneously dropping underneath and catching it. You have to keep in mind that weightlifting is a whole sport in and of itself, and that weightlifters will devote their entire lives just to get good at these two movements. If you're watching this, your sport is probably wrestling or some other related combat sport, which is not weightlifting. That means you do not have to be a master technician at these lifts. You just have to be proficient enough at them in order to get the athletic benefits from them. A really good example of this are throwers, because they do this really weird little hip clean thing that makes your average wannabe weightlifter puke in the back of their mouths, but they're cleaning not to get better at weightlifting, but to get better at their own respective sport. That's not to say that your technique can look like this, but if you can find a reputable coach, hopefully you can look like this instead. But if you're not that lucky, here are some of the best resources and coaches on YouTube that you can use to get your technique better. Now, onto why you actually want to do these movements. The first of which is that they make you powerful. By the very nature of these movements, you cannot do them slowly. And because they're full body movements, you can use heavy weights. And you're forced to move that heavy weight fast. This is something you're not going to get on your other big compound strength movements like your deadlifts, squats, bench presses, etc. Because while you might be producing a lot of force, you're doing it over a longer amount of time, which is not power. The next and most important reason why you should be doing Olympic lifting variations in your training is because they are relatively complex and technical exercises. By learning these movements and adding them to your movement vocabulary, you are increasing your bodily awareness and control, which means that going forward, it's easier for you to learn new movements. So when your coach is showing a cool new technique that you like, or scrolling through Instagram, and you see something you want to try and practice, it'll be that much easier for you to actually implement that and do it successfully. Whereas a lot of people will try and just do med ball slams or throws or trap bar jumps to try and get the power output, they are missing this key benefit from Olympic lifts. The third reason why you should be doing these movements is because they require a lot of mobility. They also develop mobility by doing them, and they build strength and power in those deep ranges of motion. Whether it's a deep squat position and a full clean or full snatch, a really externally rotated position in the front rack, or a solid overhead position in the snatch or jerk. If you do not have the mobility to do these movements, that's a huge red flag that there's something wrong and it's probably impacting your sport without you even knowing it. The next reason why I want to be doing Olympic lifts is because of the transfer to sport. There are several general athletic attributes that you get from doing these movements that will carry over and make you better on the mat. A few examples are like when you're extending in a snatch or clean, you're using your hips to shoot the bar up vertically, just like you would on a mat return when you're lifting the guy and bringing him back to the mat. Another example, you're using your legs and your arms to coordinate and be powerful at the exact same time. Or like on a split jerk, you're stabilizing and catching in a split staggered stance, just like you would be on the mat. Anytime you're catching the bar, whether that's in a clean, overhead, etc., you're learning how to properly absorb force, which is going to make sure you don't get hurt on the mat. All of these little attributes you get from doing these lifts are going to make you better on the mat. The last reason you should be doing Olympic lifting is because it's fun to do these kind of cool things in bully weights. It gives you a kind of confidence you're not going to get from med ball slams, where you know if this guy pisses you off, you can put that dude above your head if you really wanted to. Here's how to actually implement this into your training. As for when you should be doing the Olympic lifts, you can do these year-round if you really want to. In season, out of season, it doesn't really matter. Some things you might want to think about, though, are doing more Olympic lifting in season and less hardcore strength training, so you can keep the muscle that you built in the off-season while not being as stressful on your body. Because the 225-pound power clean is not going to do as much damage to your body as a 405-pound deadlift would. This will also help you peak and be a little more explosive in season, which is what you want. Meanwhile, even out of season, if you're doing a hardcore strength phase trying to really bulk up, you might want to spend more of your training time on those hardcore strength movements and wait to do the Olympic lifts a little later in the off season. Onto a day-by-day basis, where I like to put a snatch or clean variation on my lower body focus days and a jerk variation on my upper body days. Because these are power movements, you should be doing them in the very beginning of your training session when you're the most fresh. And you should be doing anywhere from 1 to 5 reps per set. If you go past that, your body's ability to develop peak power and force is going to go down and you're going to slow down, which is not what we want to train. So some example sets might be like a 4x2, 3x3, etc. Another really fun thing you can do is what's called every minute on the minute, or EMOMs, where you set a timer for say like 10 minutes, and every minute you're going to do however many reps. You get the rest of the minute to rest. The next minute comes, do that same thing over and over again until the clock ends. This is going to help you build a lot of power endurance and get some good quality reps in a short amount of time. Another really important reason why you want to have these explosive movements in the beginning of your day is because you're going to wake up your central nervous system and help you recruit more muscle fibers for the rest of your lift. So if I have a clean and then I move into a deadlift, my deadlift is going to feel better and be more explosive than it would if I didn't do the clean beforehand, which in the long run can help you get a lot more gains. And the cool thing about the Olympic lifts is that it's not just the competition lifts that you have to do. There are plenty of ways you can modify these to achieve the things you want to achieve. If your shoulder mobility has a lot of room for improvement, you can do behind the neck jerks to still find a way to get it done. If you want to work more unilateral strength, you can do single arm dumbbell snatches. You can do high hang above the knee, low hang below the knee. You can even get a pause off the floor to get an extra tension in your body. Whatever you want to do, you can find a way to do it with these movements. And if I've done my job correctly, you now understand why you need to be doing Olympic lifts to become a more explosive wrestler.